So my name is Michael Ditor. I am Senior Analyst and Program Coordinator with the Community Data Program. And I'll be taking everyone through this Beyond 2020 orientation. We're really going to focus just on how to use this software, how to get data out of it. It's not going to deal with a lot of other aspects of the program. And what I wanted to do a little bit differently from other webinars that we've done is I'm going to go through very quickly the slides and just do a quick demonstration of the software right at the beginning. And it'll be fairly quick. And then we're going to go back and we're going to go through it in more detail a little more slowly. But this is being recorded. And so maybe later, someone who just wants to see a quick overview of what can be done can just watch the first few minutes of this. And then if you want something more in depth, just continue watching. And some of you may find that the quick overview is sufficient to know how to get what you need out of Beyond 2020. It's not immediately intuitive as a software, but it's very quick to learn. It's not that hard to get what you need out of it. So I'm just going to move the slide forward. So we'll give a live demo of the software in this presentation, and then we can take some questions afterwards, and I'm happy to stick around for a bit. Again, this is more like a little resource demonstration for later, but essentially you're using it just to get data out of the CDP catalog. We don't use Beyond 2020 for anything else. It's mainly a data dissemination software. If you want to get Beyond 2020, if you don't have it installed on your browser, you can check out the Beyond 2020 resources on the CDP website. We have a section on Beyond 2020. You can download the browser there, and there's a few other resources showing you how to use it. And as we recently found out, you can actually run Beyond 2020 on Mac. One option is to use a paid software, and the other is to run a Windows environment on your Mac operating system. So these are the slides, and as I said, they will be made available later. When you open up any Beyond 2020 file, and one thing that's good to make sure when you get a zip file from our site is to unzip it. You can often open IVT files from within a zip folder, but you don't. You can occasionally run into problems doing that in saving it later, or it's best just to unzip it. If we open up this file, the format for Beyond 2020 is .ivt. I've got it open here. If you have other files open, you can see it opens in this. Sorry, let me clear some zoom stuff out of here. You can see it opens in this sort of tiled manner. You can quickly get the full table up like this. So Beyond 2020 is just really starts as a two-dimensional spreadsheet. Here we've got demographic dimension, and then these are stats associated with the table. But all of these dimensions at the top are also a part of the table and are part of these data. These data are currently for all of Canada, and there's no age groups that are being for the primary household maintainer that are being used in this table. Again, total population for core housing needs status, household type. These are counts, and then by tenure. So what we can do is we could also filter this flat table here by one of these dimensions up in the top. So right now, I can just click through owners. I'll bring it over so you can see it a little better. This is for renters. This switches to all households. This is owners. But you can also start pulling data down. You can switch your rows and columns just by dragging and dropping. I'm clicking, dragging and dropping. I can bring other dimensions down into the table, choosing from what's up there. And if I want to make it have more than 2 dimensions in the table, you can stack dimensions within the file, in the table. Like so, you wait until there's a little bar there, and then I let go, and it drops it. If I need to, I can simply reset this table to how it was when I first opened it. When you are bringing dimensions down, I can select certain dimensions that I'm interested in and show only those. I use Control to select some dimensions if I need to select multiple ones. And now if I right click, I can hide those dimensions if I want. To bring everything back, I can right click, select show all. And so you can see how, I mean, a lot of it is just playing with the dimensions to get the table to look how you want. Hopefully this is not too fast. Again, I'm going to remind people that I'm going to go back and go over some of these functions in a little bit more detail. If you're looking at the geography dimension, it's good to note that in a lot of these files, again, you can play with the width, that each dimension has several layers. If you think of, it's showing you now layers of labels. So it's showing you now the names of these geographies, but behind that, we can also see, this gives you the geographic levels, so provinces, census divisions, census subdivisions, and then the code that's associated with it. And this is a data quality indicator that is indicating what the quality is for that geography. Just the geographic levels, just the unique identifier, the UID. That's just a simple index. And then we're back to the names. So sometimes you may want to search by the UID. Sometimes you may want to filter the table for only provinces or only census divisions. And you can do that with some of the labels that that we're not currently seeing, but can see by switching this button. You're likely going to want to search for a geography that's of interest to you. You could always just scroll down looking for it. And these things are ordered typically in some sort of hierarchy. So these are going to be the census divisions that are included in this census division. But probably what's a lot easier is just to search. So that typically you can do that here. We can go dimension, search. And here you can see all the different labels that I was talking about. So the English description is the name. You have the data quality indicator. You have the level of geography. There's the UID. So if I'm looking for where I'm located right now, Montreal, MONTR, I can just look for part of that text. And you'll see that the table, this search function is going to reduce the table to show me only records that have this text in their name, in the English description. Similarly, I could select UID and search, I think it's 24, 60, I think something like that, Montreal. There's other options for the type of selection. I can show you later how that works. But if I search, then it's reduced everything to show just those that have Montreal in the name. Let's get rid of, this is going to be, if in case it's not clear, you can always check the labels. But this is the city of Montreal. I can see that it's a census subdivision, and that's the UID associated with it, and it's located in the census division of Montreal, which has just this 4-digit UID 2466, and then of course all the other census subdivisions start 2466. So let's look at the island of Montreal. Just get rid of these, and then we can put Montreal, the geography dimension up there. And now we have a table on core housing need for just Montreal Island. Let's say we want to bring this down in here. And now the table looks a little bit more like how we want. So I can save these data. So let me get some of this zoom stuff out of the way. Save these data as an IVT file. And if you save it as an IVT file now, it will not include everything that was filtered out. But the rest of the table should be fine. But what we want to do is get it out in some useful format. So I usually pick comma separated file. This you can see is an old format of Excel. Pick comma separated file. Find the folder I'm interested in, and let's save it. So that covers a lot of what you would want to do with Beyond 2020. And the names of the functions are all fairly self-explanatory. So from here, some of you may be able to go and just play with it on your own and figure out what you need to know. There's a lot of other functions here that I do not really use, like display a chart, sorting. Sorting can be useful when you're looking for something, but for the most part, the idea is to get data out of here and into something usable. You don't do anything in Beyond 2020. So that's what I'd say is the quick overview. Otherwise, I can start going through. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them right now, and we can just talk a little bit about some of the functions. But otherwise, I will go into some of the functions in a little bit more depth. Any unaggregated data. I don't know if you're talking about like source data. None of that is available through this. When we get data from StatsCan, they give it to us in this IVT file that's already been aggregated, and it has suppression rules and random rounding all worked into here. So you choose a combination of dimensions and a particular variable that requires the data to be suppressed. It's already suppressed. If that answers your question. So when you open a Beyond 2020 file, Sadie, do you mind? I'll let you take the questions from the chat, and I'm going to leave the chat box closed. It's already quite a lot of.
Sure. Yeah, there is one question about the census tract data. So if you're working with census tract data, is there a quick way to select all the cities within a certain CMA?
I don't know if you'd call it quick. Do I have a CT data one open? These are census divisions and census subdivisions. It would be a bit similar to that. I can find a CT one, but they are structured. So if you imagine that this is the census metropolitan area or census agglomeration that you're interested in, you'll find that everything that's indented underneath it is going to be all of the census tracts for that. And it is a bit more, let's take the neat table, neat being, so you see this is opening it from a zip file, but I'm trying to remember what can cause problems. It's still just good practice to unzip it. So this is what the census tract data would look like. So if I want everything in St. John's, I would click on the first one let's include St. John's, CMA of St. John's. And you might just scroll down and then take everything. I'm holding down Shift and clicking the last one, and it selects all of it. Right click, hit show. Otherwise, you could select for all census tracts, but that's not going to limit it to one census tract that you're interested in. What you could do is, I might recommend, if this is something that you really find is easier to automate, again, is to just take everything out of here and put it in Excel and do it in Excel. And then you can filter for something that begins 001, that's the St. John's. You see, that's the St. John's CMA UID, and all the census tracts start with 001. Yeah, that would be the various ways you can do it. That's about as fast as I'd say as it can go. I'm just scrolling through the different labels for this, and yeah, it looks like that's the best way. I could search this. Let me get rid of all of this Zoom stuff. Search it for UIDs that contain 001. None found. Okay, I am using it wrong. Let's select code and see if that. Sorry. UID 001 reduce. Oh, sorry, I typed it twice.
Maybe changing the label?
Yeah, I guess, but it searches all of the labels. So if even though I'm not showing the label here, I could look for just census tracts. If I hit CT, I'm not quite sure why it's not finding anything, because this is I'll show all, search, should have 001 in the label. That is not showing that. Well, this is I'm perhaps using the wrong label here. Data code is not 001. Usually this works a lot better. I would imagine that. I'm not sure why it's showing this for 001. There's the 001, the code that it's finding. So this is the code. UID in a lot of other IVT files would be looking at, like if I look at this one and search the UID, I mean, I know that Montreal is going to start 246, showing me all these 246 UIDs. Bring it back.
It works
show.
here.
Yeah, I'm not certain. That's odd that it's not finding 001 as in the UID for St. John's and its census tracts. But let me look into that later. Typically, that should work if you are searching for research another census tract file. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment doing this. But if I search for the UID 535, the problem with this is, of course, that you're also going to take anything that has has 535 in it. So if any of these CTs stop with 535, anyway, these are various ways that you can look for the particular census tract, look for census tracts within a CMA. So again, going through what would happen, you open up your Beyond 2020 file, it looks like this. A good place to start whenever you are using a file is to open up the summary. It has a lot of metadata that you might need for your project. This is going to tell you the full title is indicating the universe that you're looking at. So here it's private population 15 years and over in private households.
There's a question, Mike. Is it okay if we jump in, or do you want to
Yeah, no
just...
problem.
Okay, so the question is there a way to correct or see into a calculation error present in the document? Total is not equal to the sum of all categories present here. It's always rounded off to the nearest fifth value.
There's random rounding that is done on all these values to the nearest multiple of 5. But there's no modifying, there's no correcting values in an IVT file. So if you find an error in here, it's usually like this format doesn't have a lot of like formulas or calculations going on in it. These are data that have been extracted from a master file at Statistics Canada. So if there's an error to be found, then we just go back to them and have them give us another version of this file. But this file can't be corrected. We can't edit these files except for changing what's displaying. But as far as the data that's inside them, there is no editing. I'm not sure if I've fully answered the question, because you're talking about total is not equal to the sum of the categories present. That will be the case in some files. The total is not always going to be the total. You can have multiple sort of dimensions stacked within a single dimension. Let's say this is not one. This should all sum. Typically, they're entitled selected characteristics. Those types of dimensions may not have all of the in one of the ones that I was just looking at, the demographic dimension is split up. This is one part of 3 tables that make up core housing demographic dimension. But for the most part, you'll find that this total does represent the sum of the variables underneath it. Okay, so I'll continue on. If you want, if there is an error that you're finding, maybe we should take care of it at the end, because I would need a little more detail to go into what the values are and particularly what table. So I do encourage you to look at some of the metadata that's associated with the table when you're dealing with different dimensions. You can see that this status bar down at the bottom shows you how many variables are in a particular dimension. So right now, the active dimension is this statistics dimension showing data for private households. showing that I've selected five out of the five variables. Here I've selected 3 out of the 5. It's not so useful here, but if you're ever choosing from a long list, it does help to have that status bar sometimes. You can also look at the active, you can view a dimension. We don't need to move that. Let me get some zoom stuff out of the way. I can set which dimension I want to be the active dimension. Once you've set an active dimension, then these 2 arrow buttons allow you to scroll through the values that are contained within that dimension. You can see the values here are changing as this table is filtered by the values here. So now it's showing for 15 to 29-year-olds, for 30 to 44-year-olds, and so on. I don't typically use much of these. Occasionally, data that get from StatsCan may not be showing all of the decimals, particularly percentages. You might see percentages that are rounded. Here's a good example. I had the zoom bar is in the way. But the average STIR shelter cost to income ratio here is being showed at just 1 digit. So if we change the number of decimals, they don't typically put more than 2 into these tables. And it looks like that is as precise as this table goes. But it's definitely good to check that, because there will be percentage values and ratios that aren't showing decimals, but you may want to have them when you export out of beyond 2020, because the value, if this 20 happened to be a 19.6, when you export it looking like a 20, the value in Excel is going to be 20. So it's good to make sure that you have all the decimals showing that you might need for your calculations. So as I showed you, you can manipulate dimensions by just clicking on them, dragging them to where you want them, and releasing. So that's just switching columns and rows. Similarly, if I want to bring this down, I can drop it here, and the household data dimension will jump up top. But if you look at where an easy mistake to make when you're dragging and dropping dimensions like this is not noticing how this dimension changes. This is the dimension that was just in the table. And you may assume that it's showing you data for private households. But if I happen to click the table here in the row of average household income before taxes, and I drag this down, you'll see that it's showing me data for average household income before taxes. You want to make sure that you know what the table is being filtered for. If perhaps you meant for it to be just showing you the total for all private households. So the same thing could happen here. If I bring this dimension down, it's going to be filtering the table for 15 to 29-year-olds just because the cursor is located there. And it's easy to export data that you didn't mean to. So searching for the geography that you're interested in. If I want to get everything back, I can click on the dimension and select show all. Now it's showing me all the geographies that had been filtered out of this table when I searched for Montreal. So if I want to be searching, I have to have geography be the active dimension. If I am clicked here and I search, then it's going to be searching these variables. But I click in here and I can search or hit dimension search. And often you just know the English description of the place you're looking for, and it filters the table down to include only those values. Let's say I find the value that I'm looking for. I want Montreal, so it reduces it to Montreal. I'll take the island of Montreal and get rid of those. And now if I want to search, say I want to include Laval in there, then if I search now for Laval, it's not going to find it because the table has been reduced to only show Montreal. But I can expand the selection to include Laval. And now it's showing me everything that's Laval. So let's, the island and the city of Laval are pretty much the same. We can get rid of that. So I could just click on these two and right click, show. And now I have two that I want. When you go back, it's going to remember your last type of selection. So you may need, if there was still a list here and you need to search and reduce the table, you may want to put it back to reduce. So again, as I showed, and for some reason was not working well with the CT tables, you can also search for this by different labels. If I'm looking for UID 2466, then it's narrowed it down to just Montreal, which has the UID 2466. So we just bring everything back, show all, or you can hit reset, it resets the entire table. Change it to something you can recognize. Again, so if I want to change these data, say I'm interested in the all households and Black households with at least one Black person, I can select those. This would allow me to create a proportion, hit show. I did that just by clicking one, I hold down Control, and I click another, and then you can decide what you want to do with those data. By tenure, I'm interested in, let's say, just renters. So here I would renters and all tenure if we want to have an appropriate denominator. You can bring in more dimensions by dragging it down and wait till you see that line. You decide where you want to put it and let go. So here, if we want to decide, sometimes when you're deciding what data you want to get, you can't see the variables very well. You can click here to expand it and make it a little easier to read. Sometimes I just bring it down quickly into this dimension where it's a bit easier. And if I'm interested in households that are below multiple housing standards, then I can click on that and select show. Again, you can also just do this in Excel. You can take the whole table out and do it in Excel, but if you need, it may be easier to do it in Beyond 2020 beforehand. So I've selected what I want, and now I can just switch the columns and rows. If I want to change this order, you can move it around. Renters and all households. And so if I want these data, I can easily just click here. I'm just double clicking and dragging. And if I hit Control C, if I hit Control C, you can't always do it. The request is too large if you want to just copy it out. And in that case, all right, let's say that it wasn't. I could select just those, and if I hit Control C, it can do it. I don't have Excel open. And just Control V, and it brings everything in. When you do it this way, you'll note that it's also brought in the labels. It's indicating up top. You just copy paste. It's telling you what the values of the other dimensions. But let's say we had to, I'm going to show all the values now. If we were wanting to get this out and we couldn't just copy because it's a bit too large, then we can save the file as, and again, I would save this as a comma separated file. If you're running into size limits in IVT, it's probably also going to run into size limits in the old format of Excel, because this format of Excel, I can't remember, I only had 64,000, or how many rows did it have and columns, but not many, not as many as new values do. So I just find it better just to take everything in CSV values. One thing I would note when you're saving a file, often when you first open Beyond 2020, the default for where you save it is going to be in some obscure directory. And so just go up as high in the directories as you can, and then start scrolling down to find something you recognize. So from C, I would go to the user. User, this is me. Go to the documents. And then you might notice things that you recognize. I'm going to save this as a CSV file. Example. Go there now. So here, it is showing some other labels, but it has these out of order. This is something, sometimes the files will do this. But mostly it would look a little more. If I save this file, and it looks, you're essentially just getting just the flat table. It's not telling you what is in these dimensions. So if you save something as a CSV file from this, it's good to note either in the name of the file or note somewhere else what dimensions are included or are possibly filtering these data up top, because these data are being filtered by the dimensions above. Let's bring it back so that you recognize. What else to show you about Beyond 2020? So we have searched. It's always good to know for if anyone is francophone. You can change the language of the table. Or if I just hit F9, it does the same thing. And again, I don't honestly use a lot of these functions because I just want to get it out of here and into Excel. So you can display charts, but I don't find them very useful. Searching for your geography, manipulating dimensions, the summary, exporting. That's most of what you need to know with Beyond 2020. Searching. You can use sorting if that helps you, perhaps with searching. In this way, it's brought all of the census tracts together. But again, I would just prefer to do this type of stuff in Excel. So that is most everything that you need to do with Excel with Beyond 2020. Does anyone have any questions about what we've seen so far? Or
Mike, is there any other formats that we can convert to from IVT format?
From IVT format, there are. Again, I don't often use them. If we wanted to take this, and you can see if we were to save this as an Excel worksheet. It's looking like this. So it applies a bit of formatting. And it does give some information about the dimensions that were included in the table. The other, I mean, it really gives you an indication of how old this software is and how it hasn't really been touched since the 90s, when they thought that the year 2020 was really far away. You have DBase files. I think one of these is for Quattro Pro. Worksheet 1, WKS. So I don't typically use, I mean, you could, if you need for a particular application to export something as a text file, you do that here. But again, you could always just do that in Excel. This really should be thought of as just a dissemination software. You don't really want to do much in this. You want to get your data somewhere else. How and where you get the data that you load into Beyond 2020. So that's just, again, this would be from the website, but it makes a good point that it would be good to show where on the site up first, I will show you how to get beyond 2020. Go to tools for using the data under resources, how to find and use our data. And you can download the .exe file here. We have a couple PDF guides on how to use Beyond 2020. And again, you typically can't run Beyond 2020 on a Mac. This crossover software, I think, was in the range of 70 or 80 US dollars. And we have a new person on the team who has a Mac, and that's essentially how we found out about this, because he didn't want to install a Windows environment on his Mac. And found this. But the data you would just get from our catalog if you download, and these first two files are not IDT, but, and this is the core housing need table I was just looking at. You would just download this from our file. If you logged in, then you add it to your cart, go to checkout. And then I download the file using this link. We'll bring it to okay, this is a rather large file, so I won't bother using that particular one, but you end up with a zip file. And again, I recommend that you extract all the data from the zip file. If we just right click on zip and extract all, we'll open it up like this. And then you just need to double click on one of these files. This would be the opening. How it looks when it's first opened. The presentation will definitely be posted later. My apologies for that. Can we group CTs together to create a new group so that data aggregates for this new group? Not with this. I recall seeing in a Beyond 2020 video that in another version of it, you could create groups, create a new group, and it would give you an aggregated value. But all the various other versions of Beyond 2020, this is just the browsers, same as Adobe Acrobat has Adobe Acrobat Reader. This is just for browsing, just for looking at the data. So you can't really make an aggregated variable in this version of the software. But if you are thinking of aggregating particular geographies, it's always best to check with us whether we can just submit those geographies as a custom geography for you, and then we put in a special order and get that custom geography, get data created for that custom geography. Did that answer your question? Let me open the chat again. So if anyone has any other questions, there, typically the Beyond 2020 part of our orientation, lasts about 40 minutes. So otherwise I can stick around, and if you want to play around with it and see if you have any questions. I mean, there's various ways you can tile, display the data. There's a lot of different functionality here, but I don't particularly play with any of this. I just keep it on a full screen and try to get everything into Excel as quickly as possible.